Good evening once again, and welcome to another edition of Caribbean Feedback. My name is Curtis Henry, and I will be your moderator this evening. Good evening and welcome one and all. Sister Karin, how are we doing today?
Good.
Welcome. So glad you could join us. Mr. Mark Chase.
Sir, doing well.
Welcome to the show. Samuel Archer, were you eating something? You chewing gum? What was going on? Your mouth just moving.
I chewing gum.
All right, I just see your mouth continuously moving.
Yeah. You know,
all right, I'm dealing with some foggy lens here this evening. Hopefully within the next few minutes, our resident latecomer can in fact join us.
Yeah.
Let's get the show on the road. Good evening, Lucy O'Brien. Thank you so much.
Lucy!
Thank you so much for joining us. We did have a guest scheduled for this evening. However, I'm not quite sure she will be joining us. The subject, the issue of the subject matter, not the after effects of this particular subject matter we're dealing with this evening. Someone that is still recovering. But we will play it by ear and see how. There you go. Now I can see you all clear. I'm getting some feedback on somebody's system there. Okay, it suddenly stopped.
Yeah.
That's good. So, Sam?
Yes, sir.
Let me run the thing. We're going to jump right into the show. And give the people what we have.
Give the people what we have.
I'm vibing.
My name is Karin Forrester. I represent BantuKreations. BantuKreations offers beautifully made, African-inspired, lightweight, handcrafted, one-of-a-kind earrings in wonderful shapes, shades, sizes, and colors. Please don't be scared of the large sizes. They're extremely lightweight earrings. BantuKreations can be found on IG and on Facebook as BantuKreations. That's BantuKreations with a K.
Check me out, chriskeys.com. I'm worldwide.
Tony Altamirano.
Hi, I'm Gina.
What's up, everybody? I'm Win Vu, award-winning remixer.
I'm an artist.
Hi, my name's Justina Bethel.
Hi, I'm Mike Bowen from Denton, Texas.
How you doing? This is Tom Cup from Music by Tom Cups. Check out Samuel E. Archer's book, Hybrid Executive. We are in the business, and here's how you can be a better business person because you're running your business.
You can find my music at JustinaBeth_EL on Instagram or JustinaBethel.com, and I am a hybrid executive.
I'm a hybrid executive.
I'm a hybrid executive, just like you.
Follow me at Koya Music, and I'm also a hybrid executive.
I'm worldwide, baby, but just know I'm a hybrid executive. That's all you need to know, baby.
Get on up, E.
Check out my music, MikeBowen.com. I'm a hybrid executive.
I'm a hybrid executive.
Yes. And we are back. We have a very touchy subject tonight. Something we've touched on in the past. We've dealt with it bit by bit. But I think tonight is the first show we're taking it head on. I really wish Dr. Judith was here for the start of this conversation, considering this is her area of expertise, her area of interest that she has worked in for so many years. I'm still picking up some feedback from somebody's mic. Something coming through. A lot of shuffling.
Almost sounds like a radio.
Let me check one thing.
Nevertheless, we're not going to have any dead air. We are going to keep things rolling. as we work out our technical issues. We just gonna keep everything running right along smooth. It's a bit distracting, but I don't know if it's coming over on the air.
Is it
but I'm
still
hearing
there? Still a problem?
It went down some, but I'm still hearing it. Okay, it's less of, it doesn't affect as much, but I'm hearing like wires knocking, wires knocking around on me there. Nevertheless, let me get the thing rolling. We have anybody else in the chat room? Yes, Lucy, good night. So this evening, topic of conversation, black and blue. Black and blue. From that introduction, one may tend to think that I'm referring to the presence or lack thereof of black men and women in the police force. Black and blue. No, ladies and gentlemen. I'm simply trying to shed some light on the colors that are left on the faces of many women on a daily basis throughout America and across the world. Black and blue. Women who have to go to work and put a bang and a weave in front of their eyes to cover the effects, the after effects of domestic abuse. Swollen lips, black and blue eyes, closed eyes. According to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, on average, more than 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 women in the US will experience rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner. More than half of the female rape victims reported that they were raped by an intimate partner, and upwards of 40% of these women knew their assailant. Some statistics also show that for male victims, upwards of 52% of the reported cases were raped by an acquaintance, and 15% reported being raped by a total stranger. I've looked on YouTube and I've seen several social awareness experiments, as they call them, done on YouTube, where a scenario was played out where a man attacked a woman in public. And within seconds, several people intervened without even questioning anyone as to what was going on. And in some cases, they even physically assaulted the male perpetrator. Whereas when that situation was reversed, the experiment went on and on and on for several minutes. And most of the passers-by actually thought it was funny, seeing a man being beaten up in public by a woman, and no one intervened. Let me ask you all something. Why is it forbidden on one hand and socially acceptable when the man is the victim? How is that? Many men are abused and don't even know it. Many men are abused and are ashamed to go report it, because now they are looked at as punks. They are looked at as less than a man. Not because they cannot fight back or defend themselves in a situation. Maybe they chose not to. But society does not respond the same way. Based on these experiments, does not respond the same way when the man is being abused. But the minute a man raises his hand for a woman, jail him, beat him, whatever the situation might be. But society doesn't go for that. At the end of the day, domestic violence is domestic violence, regardless of who it's being perpetrated against. Let me ask you all the question. How can domestic violence be prevented?
Before you get into prevention, can we discuss the causes or the situations that exist?
Well, the situation, sometimes in order to avoid the situation, we need to know what can be done to avoid it. So how can we prevent this? You can be the best person in the world, a man or a woman that never raised their hand in violence. But when it's sitting on your doorstep, when it's, as we discussed before, when you're sleeping with the enemy, what do? How can you prevent it from happening? How can you prevent yourself from being the perpetrator in a situation where your hand is being forced? How can you prevent yourself from being a victim when you have an over-controlling, an abusive mate? How can we avoid that?
Avoid it by being able to identify, potential problems. That's how you can avoid it. You don't get together with someone who is fawning all over you, needs to know where you are all the time, needs to control what you wear, where you go, who you see. We've already discussed some of this, I'm sure, but prevented by being able to identify some of the issues that lead you into relationships like that. That's my look. That's my take on it. There's so many young girls that
there'll be some tough answers.
Sorry, Sam. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just said there'll be some easy answers and there'll be some tough answers. It all depends, I think.
But some of these young girls, and I say young girls because it happens to teenagers a lot. The numbers are staggering for teens in here in this country, and I'm sure elsewhere. But teens get into the early dating, and sometimes the parents are a bit lax, thinking, oh, it's normal, 14, 15-year-old going out. They don't talk about the boyfriends pushing them or trying to control what they wear or where they go, and they think that if it's like a first love situation or first infatuation, I don't deal with puppy love, we're not puppies, but if it's an infatuation or a first love, girls tend to just be so crazy over this guy. He's showing you so much attention that they don't pay attention to a lot of the signs. He's always has to be with you. You can't be with your friends anymore now that he's your boyfriend. You've got to go where he wants you to go. You can't see your friends freely. You can't call your friends freely when you're in his presence. You can't pick up your phone. He's checking your phone. That is not love. And they don't see it until they get the shoves and the pushes and that first hit. And then they're too ashamed to tell even some of their friends, or certainly they won't tell their parents. It starts really young. It starts really, really young, unfortunately.
I don't want to out anybody's business here in terms of us or people that you may know, so we can leave out the name for a second. But has anyone here ever or know someone personally who has dealt with physical abuse?
I have. I've known family member who's dealt with it. I had a cousin who was a raging drunk in his off work hours, and used her as a punching bag. And I remember being 14, 15, if I remember correctly, and her visiting my mom, my mom and me, and always had dark glasses on. And it took me a while to realize, like why is she always in dark glasses? It took me a while, and extra makeup in those areas that it's not blended well, or it just can't cover all the discolorations properly. And it was a constant thing. She dealt with it for many, many years.
I think
to say something.
This is a problem that spans all races, ethnicities, religions. There are some places where it's cultural. That doesn't excuse it. And I think in the case of African Americans and people of Caribbean descent, we have an extra added nugget. where other people suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress, syndrome. We suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic slave disorder. And you master rape mommy, master beat daddy, master send daddy away, mommy take over for the kids, mommy does beat the kids, and the kids does learn to beat somebody else. We have a history, not of our own, a learned, ingrained history. And I think in our case, it's very different. We have to solve our own issues because our issues are different and they come from a different place. And so I think for a young woman of color looking for help, I hesitate to say it, but you have to go to your own because no one really knows what you're going through. And I think that's important. I think that's important.
Back to the question though, in witnessing this situation, were you in a position to do something, or if you were to see something like this happening, are you the type of person that would get involved?
Myself?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Without question. Without question. That's not even that's silliness, of course. Of course, if I see someone or am aware of someone putting their hands on someone else, now I can't do anything if that person says, no, I don't want you to do something, or no, it didn't really happen. But if I've seen that it's happened, yeah, I'm going to get involved. And quite personally,
How about you, Sam? How about you, Sam? Is that a safe thing, you think, to get involved in domestic affairs?
It's a little bit iffy. I remember there was a cartoon some years ago with this caveman beating his wife. And then a doctor from the future or the present, because the caveman was in the past, so the doctor came in the present. And he was telling the caveman, that is not how you treat a lady. You have to treat her nice. And so, of course, now the lady looking at the poor doctor as if he's crazy and take the bat and start to be the doctor. So, but to bring it back to a serious thing, most times people stay out of stuff because they don't know what's the underlying factor in there. If you're a neighbor and you know what's going on, you know that there's a situation, it might make more sense for that person to get involved because they understand the underlying, or they may have a remote idea of what that situation might be. But sometimes you don't know. I saw situations where the woman slapping the man, pow, and giving him some good, and he taking his step, and then he position her now, and he give her one and knock her out on the ground. I mean, maybe that's a game they play, So now you come and you get involved, and there's a problem, But there's some cases where people will get involved, and it saved the person's life, whether it's the man life got saved or the woman life got saved. So it's something that we have to sort of say, is this something we want to get involved with, or is this something where we're going to go and call and bring the authorities in, and that might open up another kind of worms, because they come, and especially in our neighborhoods, they might shoot first and ask questions later for a domestic situation. So it's a little bit iffy for me.
So, Karin, you mentioned earlier on about the causes. When I asked about preventing, and you wanted to discuss the causes, get into that a little bit.
No, just to cause what leads to it is people not seeing this potential partner not assessing, their behavior correctly. I think that's a big problem, especially for younger women. Where they're so enamored, they're so in love, they're so infatuated that they're not looking at this person and saying, calling me 100 times a day, nah, that's gonna be a problem, people. Or checking where I am, who I'm with. That's problematic, But initially they think that's great. The person is showing so much attention. So identifying that those, for lack of better words right now, those red flags or orange flags, you've got to be able to say, no, he's keeping tabs on me everywhere I go. I can't move freely with him. This is just in the dating period, long before you're doing any living situation. Because by the time they get you behind closed doors, it's a done deal. They've established, their role in your life.
We often throw around this term we call stalking. People, we use it loosely. Stalking. He's a stalker. Or this one was stalking. And some of us may have different interpretations, first of all, for that word. Could someone discuss for me what are some of the most common forms of stalking? Because I don't think some victims even aware of the fact that they're being stalked. Most people think it's somebody following you down the street, dodging, hiding behind a tree. But as far as I know, some examples of stalking, repeated unwanted phone calls. If you tell somebody, leave me alone, and they keep calling you, continuously calling you to the point where you have to end up changing your phone number. To me, that's a form of stalking.
Or they show up on your job, or, constantly bringing you gifts, and you've expressed that you're not interested, and they persist. That persistent behavior is unattractive as hell. After Judith, jump right on it.
Good night, Dr. Judith.
Y'all are covering it well.
We are?
I don't want to stop you.
But let me, on that same note, before we move on the conversation, some of the other things that people need to pay attention to, especially in this digital age, when somebody starts to tamper with your social media account.
Cyber stalking. Mm-hmm.
Not even sometimes from within the home. Going on and making, if they still have connections with you on social media, if they go in and making some unsavory remarks on your pictures, liking, hating, that social media violence, that's how it starts. Digital abuse, I call it. And also on the phone side of things, where they start to leave annoying and threatening phone messages, late night texts, continuously texting you 2 a.m. when you're supposed to be asleep. Those annoying text messages that keep coming over. People, stalking comes in many forms. It's not just somebody following you down the street, hiding behind a building, dodging behind a tree, looking to see where you're going. It's more than that. It starts sometime in the house. And you have to know. You have to look for some of the signs. Yeah.
Persistent unwanted behavior. You can say, you know what, I don't like this person doing this thing. And no matter how you say it, if you know 3 languages and this person knows, somehow it just does not, the person doesn't receive the information and continues the negative behavior.
One of the things that you have to consider is that stalking can happen from somebody that you don't want to be involved with, and stalking can come from somebody that you are involved with and want to be involved with. But there are no boundaries. They don't know how to. They don't have boundaries of their own, and you don't necessarily know how to set it for them. But one of the key things that all of you said earlier is that, Karin said it most, I think, is that when we meet people, we need to be honest about what we see in people. That's where it starts. I am of the firm belief that people see everybody when we meet them. We see them with their madnesses and their pleasantries and their ego, and we choose what we want to deal with because it's inconvenient, because this feels good. We have great conversations. Oh, the kisses, the kissing is great, and they're sexy and all of this stuff. You see the craziness, you see the calling too much, you see the texting is too much, but you block that out because it doesn't suit you, it doesn't fit with what you want. Because remember, most of the reasons why we get in relationships is because we want something. So we can see, and the other thing is that people will give you just enough of what they think you want to
get what they need.
To get what they need. And a lot of people are not honest. A lot of human beings are just not honest. They see what they want. They decide this you they're gonna get it from. They tell you just enough. Somebody told me I've had domestic violence, and I've seen it in some couple of family members, and I've intervened in the past in some of it. I didn't care. It don't matter to me. I just not gonna let you beat me up. But I stayed long enough for the foolishness to stop. But we let people come into our lives because they offer us something. We're looking for something. And they bring baggage. They bring other stuff, but we don't want to deal with it because, it's like this. I was talking to this fellow once and I said to him, he was complimenting me to the point that it was ridiculous. But then I've been through a lot in the past. This is not when I was in my 20s. This is a few years ago. And it just kept going on. And finally I said to myself, listen, I need to say something to you. I'm begging you. The compliments that you give me, they're nice. It's appreciated. I said, but I hope you don't think that you can compliment me into doing something I don't want to do. And he looked at me. He was so ticked off at me. I mean, it didn't go anywhere after that because he had a plan. I had one too, but it wasn't the same plan he had. But what I recognize about me is that I've gotten wise enough to say, there's something there. Because I said to him, I say, all the stuff you're telling me, I already know it about myself, And that upset him. I said, I know how my legs look, all the stuff he was mentioning piece by piece. I said, I know all of that about myself, and it's nice. I said, but you don't need to do that all the time. I said, because I think you can compliment me into doing and getting into that I don't want to. So there's a lot of manipulation that goes on between human beings, whether romantic or non-romantic. And people basically are self-centered. People want what they want, and they will tell you anything to get what they want. And somebody will tap you the first time. They'll tap you. I said, don't do it. Don't. But I'm just, no, not just. Because if the first time is this and the next time is this. Not necessarily so, but just in case.
But it usually escalates.
It usually does. But we've got to learn how to watch people.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm telling you, because of what we want, we see the danger, but we don't want to see the danger. And we go around it and we circumvent it until it turns out. And it does happen, like you said, Curtis, women do it to men. I've seen women take it to men, and I'm like, you must be on drugs. Why would you do that with him? And then if he starts coming at you, you want me to defend you. No, don't bring it to him, and he shouldn't bring it to you.
The CDC numbers that I saw, because I know Curtis mentioned a couple of numbers at the beginning of this program, but 1 in 4, 1 in 5, men and women are abused, whether we're talking about physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. So it's very, very real. The numbers are like 43 million women just here in the US, I'm quoting, and like 38 million men. So these are significant numbers. People always, think that men, I know that the guys will jump on this, that men are not abused, but they are. They are. There are some women who are very well skilled and doing
that. Yeah.
So we have to, we're acknowledging that. It is really, really, really serious.
The problem is that men don't want anybody to know that because they
right.
consider weak and all the rest of it. And so there are a lot of men. I saw a real.
This is only what's reported. It was a reported.
Right. And I saw a movie there that pants a real story. And the guy said, "He said, man, I don't want to tell nobody." And his father laughed at him.
Because it's shame. There's a shame. There's a shame that's assigned to them, which is unfortunate.
When somebody tells you who they are, believe them. And everybody tells you who they are up front. They do.
I think
you
so.
may not notice it. You may go through. You may go through. Oh, I can change that. No, you can't. No, you can't.
That's the female. That's the female problem. The biggest.
Right.
Listen. That's men too. You know.
Oh, I know.
You know. If I dress her a certain way, or if I take her to these places, or expose her to that, oh, she's still the same booger you met, and she told you she was a booger. She told you.
The term for that, Mark.
You didn't miss nothing.
Mark, the term for that, they say you can't turn a hoe into a housewife.
Aye. Take it easy now.
But listen, I do believe that someone's their belief system, it plays a lot into their actions.
Yeah.
You know, like their core belief. Let's speak about men as to a woman's place in society.
Right.
Some men who just believe that the woman's place is in the home. And that's what she's supposed to do. She's supposed to take care of house, clean house, take care of the children. And as far as he is concerned, he would keep her in that house for the next 45 years. Because she has no place outside in society. There are actually cultures that still believe and practice that today. And the women are quite contented with it because it's what they saw from childhood, what their mother, grandmother did. So the women are somehow comfortable with it. And that's their place in society. Now you transfer that core belief system and you bring it into America, and all of a sudden, Eddie Murphy spoke about this in Raw. All of a sudden, Umfufu started to talk to her friends, and Umfufu started to talk about wanting rights. And what have you done for me lately? Right? So the core belief system of that man, I think, plays into his actions as to how he treats that woman, where he thinks she's supposed to be in society and within his life and within the home. And sometimes they have to not have to, but they choose to beat these women into submission because that's how they have seen it all their life.
A lot of Africans have come here over the years and been very disappointed and very angry because of the traditions back home and what they were used to and what they grew up with in terms of women and their behavior. And they come to America and it's a different story altogether.
Mm-hmm. And know the culture of the person that you're getting involved with. Very important.
Right.
Whether we're talking about the Caribbean, the Middle East, it doesn't matter. Right. Know the culture, you know.
I said something earlier, and I talked about something special with us. You know, post-traumatic slave disorder, PTSD. You know, and the way I put it, you know, slave owner rapes mommy, slave owner beats daddy, daddy sold off, mommy taking care of the kids, mommy beat the kids because she don't know what else to do. Okay, now my mother used to say that beat a boy is going to be one of two things. He's either going to emulate you because that's the center of power and he wants to be as powerful as you, or he's going to be a batty man or just hate you. He'll hate you. And most women that he meets. So before you can lick him, he'll lick you. So abuse travels the diaspora. But we have a special type of abuse. And it's gone so deep that it's become cultural. And that's the shame. When Curtis said, would you jump in if you saw somebody being abused? Sam said, I don't know. I said, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I'm not going to see somebody getting beat by somebody else out of their weight class. In the same way, if I see a 118-pound man getting beaten by someone my size, by somebody who weighs 230, it's out of his weight class. No, I'm not going to have that. I'm not going to see that happen.
Now,
did you say you weighed Mark? Did you say you weighed 230?
Yes.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, on the panel and in the listening and viewing audience, we have been doing this show for well over a year. I've spoken to Mark for several months before that. I've never met the man personally. And I'll say it again, I don't know why I envision you as this short man, 5'4", 5'5", maybe $135. I don't know why you said you. Wait a minute. So all this talk I talking and badness I pushing to you, wait, you're telling me you could overpower me?
I'm not going to assume anything at all. I just going to let you know.
I wanted to ask Dr. Judith something. Mark just mentioned PTSD, which is a real consequence of being in the abusive relationships. What do you think? Do you think it's actually possible for people who, let's say the abuse is not in the home, but they certainly witness it in other ways? Could they also suffer from PTSD?
Oh yeah,
because I have I've had a couple of conversations where I mentioned from the time I was like 13, 14, 15, hearing neighbors go at it or beating a child to a, felt like a never-ending situation, and it was so frequent that every time I hear adults ready to get up and fight, I just sort of freeze up inside for a little while. Just like, it's probably just a couple of seconds, but I'm actually now aware that not only do I freeze up internally, I'm not moving for about a few seconds. I'm just not moving.
It affects your sexual life also. It does affect your sexual life in relationships. I know of a young woman who, when her parents fought, she would take the knives and hide them under the pillow.
Oh, gosh.
I know another one, she would go under the bed and hide. And she got into a lot of psychosocial issues, big problems as she got older. And she thought that all men were evil and all women were good, which is not true. Because the worst of us got something good in us, and the best of us have something bad in us. So, so the thing is that it's true. It's what happens is that even the sound stays.
Yes.
And depending on what's happening in your environment, you can hear the thing all over again. And in your own sex life, it's funny because if a man and a woman is fighting, it's different from a man and a man fighting.
Right.
Totally different response. Because we usually assume that there's some sexual relationship, some domestic relationship why a man and a woman is fighting. But a man and a woman could be fighting for any reason. Both of them could be drunk. They could be fighting for any reason. But we assume that they're having a intimate relationship and they're fighting because of that relationship not working out or whatever. But post-traumatic stress disorder can come for just about anything. And what it does is that something is happening in the present and it triggers what happened in the past. So the idea is that all that we're talking about, and I can say this now, I couldn't have said it 40 years ago because I didn't know any better. We have to be careful to train our children what to expect from men and from women. We've got to talk honestly to our girls and to our sons. I tell my son, I said, do not let a girl take advantage of you because you're sexually interested in her. Do not let her push you into getting into that, no pun intended, before you're ready, before you really want to. Because that's a problem. That's a problem could become physically detrimental after a while, because whether we believe it or not, the mind has to be ready to do certain things. And if the mind is not ready and we do it, we're forcing a situation. And the way our minds are, it has to find some way to let go of all the stuff that we can't deal with. So we have to we have to tell our boys, your penis is sacred, just like a woman's vagina is sacred. Stop telling them, go get it, boy, go get it. It's not healthy. One of the reasons why I think so many young people have all these sexual issues or whatever in marriage and whatever is because I call it that when you're very young, you're like a slate. It depends on who writes on it first. And the problem is that we have people writing on our children's slate that have no business. The age is off, everything is off. They get into things too soon. And sex, this is not. This, anybody can do it. But it affects your brain. I feel it affects your soul, but people don't want to deal with those things. So the thing is, we must teach our children, be careful of who you're getting involved with. Be careful that because you're a boy doesn't mean you don't have feelings. That's one of the worst things that boys get. Well, just put it in there and do that, and that's all. No. Boys have feelings, men have feelings, and they have to learn that young. And girls have to learn not to tease boys and taunt them and dare them to have sex with them. All that stuff has to be addressed, and we're not addressing it. We're going from one generation of ignorance to the other, on and on and on, and we're perpetrating this mess, and it's not getting any better. So the domestic violence, we see it in our parents, we see it in our auntie and our husband, we see it in our cousin, we see it in our neighbor. We know that every Saturday night, these people go and drink, and Sunday morning, somebody gonna get beat up. And nobody says it's because it's part of our community, it's part of what we do. And I'm not saying to interfere in people's business. I'm saying as much as we can, whether it's a boy or girl, we need to teach our children about these kind of things. And we're failing, especially now. There's a thing here in Georgia, I don't know if it's in Florida, where they're saying that students are now daring each other to slap a teacher. All right?
Oh, good Lord.
First, they were slapping them on their butts. But now they up the ante because that's how people are and that's how kids are. They're saying, no, they want to slap a teacher in the face. Okay? So the thing is that we have gotten to the point where anything goes. And somebody said the other day, I think it was on Facebook. No, it was on the radio. And this guy said, why are these young people behaving like this? And the guy who was asked the question said, look in the mirror. We created that. And we don't want to deal with that, but we have created a lot of this mess.
But Mark spoke earlier on about PTSD, and you elaborated a bit on that. But what are some of the, I would say now, other short-term and long-term injuries or symptoms that people suffer as a result of rape and or physical abuse?
Well, guess what? One of the biggest things is that it's simple, distrust. You can't trust anybody anymore. You stop trusting people. You're fearful of relationships. You don't want to get into a relationship. You become abusive yourself. You suspect everybody of being someone's going to harm you because of the PTSD thing. It breeds distrust. It breeds fear. People start shying away from relationships. They isolate. And I believe some of the people who have PTSD in certain situations can become solid abusers themselves. Because
explain that for me. That is something that I've always tried to grasp, and I don't understand it. I'm saying just ignorance. I don't understand it. How is it that someone can suffer a particular trauma as a child, knowing how debilitating it was to them, and then grow into an adult and then perpetrate that same act on a minor again and repeat that cycle? I don't understand it.
And I cannot tell you that I understand it. I can tell you that it's a natural outgrowth of being a human being. It is sick. It is unhealthy that you would, but let me tell you something else that I've learned. A lot of children who are abused sexually, what people don't want to deal with, And even when a woman is raped, these are things that people don't talk about because it's like, what are you talking about? This is crazy. When you're sexually abused, we're going to deal with children here. There's some degree of pleasure that comes from it. Nobody wants to deal with that. We call it sexual abuse because it's an adult doing something to a child and it's wrong and it shouldn't be done. But we must remember that in that abuse, there's some sexual pleasure that takes place. And the child feels it. And nobody can convince me otherwise. The child feels the pleasure. They're conflicted because they know they shouldn't feel it because what is happening is bad. So they have this ambivalence. That's why some people, some boys end up, and there's a man I know died not too long ago, and he said his uncle, he was so hurt. He said his uncle abused him when he was a little boy. So the thing is that when you're sexually abused, when you're sexually touched, there's some pleasure that happens that people don't want to talk about. It is still wrong, it is still abuse, but nobody wants to talk about the pleasure that comes from that. One of the things that I have tried to propose for conversation for years is, does a woman have sexual pleasure when she's raped? People don't want to talk about those things. But those things are real possibilities. And sometimes women hurt tremendously, not just because of the abuse, because some part of her enjoyed it. Why? Because the flesh doesn't have a conscience. The flesh doesn't have a brain. The people don't understand that that's why I tell people, any human being can touch another human being because there's blood in the veins and there'll be a physical reaction. Because of our upbringing, because of our training, because of whatever our environment has been, we'll say, if a woman touches me, get the hell away. Oh, that's not me. I don't like that.
What concerns me, Dr. Judith, is I'm not a numbers person, so I'm not going to go into the numbers direction, but I know that a lot of abuse victims, whether it's sexual or physical, as children especially, end up, being promiscuous.
Yes.
End up abusing alcohol, trying to numb themselves down, or other illicit drug or other illegal drugs.
Right.
That is, that cycle doesn't seem to.
Listen, that's what tells what I said before, that we come as a clean slate. And it depends on who writes on the slate in the beginning. A pervert writes on the slate in the beginning, you're going to have perverted thoughts, you're going to have perverted feelings. It screws up our thinking. So the thing is,
Curtis,
like Curtis said, how can a person who was abused go on and abuse other people? Because this thing, I don't understand it all, but this brain, it goes in the opposite direction that we expect it to go. You would think that you wouldn't want to hurt anybody, but what they say, hurt people, hurt others.
Good people.
You want to inflict on somebody what was done to you to get rid of the original pain.
Curtis asked a question at the beginning of the show. How can we prevent this? And I think, and I've thought this for some time, is that at least within the Caribbean community, it has to be a self-absorbed situation. I spoke with Karin about, there was a program in New York City. It was called The Door. It's just a place you could walk in. If you wanted to learn an instrument, you could learn an instrument. You wanted to learn, air conditioning, you could learn it. But if you said, I've been beaten, they didn't go to the city. They didn't go to the police. They got you a place to lay your head, got you a permanent place to lay your head. You had your kids, they took care of you. The moment that it was realized the program was successful, it was immediately defunded. I'll bring up another very good program started by a woman named Tarana Burke, which we all know now as Me Too. She looked in her own neighborhood at all of the children that had been abused, and her and a number of other counselors said, you can come here. and talk to us. Then she started going to prisons and realized that women and men who were in prison, it began with an abuse by somebody. And it just went further and further and further until they ended up locked up. Now I'm going to use two words that Karin asked me not to use, but I have no other words for them. A very well-known actress caught on to this program and said, yes, it's happened to me too. And it was immediately taken over by the larger white society. And instead of dealing with women who have been raped and abused and beaten, it now became, oh, I felt uncomfortable. He rubbed up against me. I didn't like it. And once again, we got left behind. We got left behind. Lawyers came in and said, oh, if 20 people say this one is wrong, must be wrong. So it became a weapon for someone else when it should have been help for us. Sam, I heard what you said, and I implore you, when you see something wrong, do something about it. You may be wrong, but hear it out. Hear it out. Understand? Because nobody's going to help us unless we help ourselves.
One of the
Nobody.
things, what Mark is
Trust
saying,
and believe.
one of the things that we have not said in all this discussion so far, we have not used the term self-esteem. Self-esteem has a lot to do with a lot of things that happen to us as human beings. Some children, I've seen it in school where I work, I've seen it in churches. Some children, their natural propensity, their personality, they will tell you off if you touch them. There's something in some personalities, and some of them have been trained by their mothers or their grandmothers, but some, like even the children that we work with, we have to clean them. And one of them will tell you, you don't touch. Now we have to clean them. She'll tell you, you don't go in the front. You can clean her from the back, but you can't go in the front. So I give her the things to use to do. She's not doing a good job, but guess what? Somebody told her not to let nobody go there. I have to respect what that child is, because that will hold her well, depending on who she's around. But self-esteem has a lot to do with why we accept certain behaviors and why we don't. Even as children. Some children so feisty, and they know some, I mean, I'm telling you, they know their worth, or somebody told them their worth. And if somebody go after them, they will go off on you royally to try and touch them or whatever. But self-esteem has a lot to do with what we put up with, even as adults. There are things that women put up with that they're not quite sure who they are and what they are, why they tolerate it. Mark said about these lawyers. There's a female lawyer, I forget her name right now. It's about the Me Too.
Gloria Allred.
That woman is offensive to me. She's making money hand over fist, representing these white women and some very confused black women. I still maintain, and I will always maintain, if somebody touches you, and that stuff, it made me uncomfortable. I told somebody, I think I said it here, if you touch me, I will touch you back. But you see, women, we talk a lot of stuff, but we're not really proactive. If a man feels that he can feel you up, I bet you try and feel up, I bet he stop. Now, some men, you have to be careful because they might take this as an invitation to go further. But whatever it is, I would rather women speak up the first time, or whatever it is she needs to say, and say, no, don't touch me.
I don't mean to even interrupt you, but that was my point, is that a group of people, very much like the attorney you mentioned, took something that was good and weaponized it.
Yeah.
They turned it into a weapon.
Yeah.
Okay. A black woman said, I just got beat down in the middle of the street. Well, what did you do? a white woman say, "Well, I felt uncomfortable,
Right. It's different
because he was standing too close to me. Oh, let's start a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Let's and get help from everywhere.
Yeah.
Where are my daughters going to get help?
There was some sick Republican politician, I believe, from out of Texas, that said these rape victims, it's their fault. It's their fault because, first of all, they have to be careful how they dress. And now let's go back. Rape didn't start in the 90s. Rape didn't start in the 80s or the 70s. Way back in the 40s, when women were dressing in these big, I forget how you call the dresses, with a big set of thing and the bloomers and all these layers upon layers of clothes, women were being raped then. So rape didn't start yesterday. That didn't start last week. That has been going on for hundreds of years. So why are you thousands? Why are you today blaming the victim and saying, well, these women need to dress more appropriately, and then they won't be raped? And Judith, going to this a bit for me, from my understanding, for most rapists, rape is not about the sex; it's about control.
Right.
Yeah, it's about power.
Right.
It's about power and violence. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
It's about
power and violence and how I can control you.
Mm-hmm.
If is a horrible saying, but get a rapist, a woman is being raped, and she said, "Oh my God, I love this. Oh baby," and his little things shrink up and he'll run away. He's not in control.
Right.
He's not in control anymore.
Right.
Rape is a crime of violence and control. And what's really frightening is that the very people that need help aren't getting it.
They're not identified. They're not properly identified.
But as we speak about violence, let's bring it back into the home. What happens when love and jealousy it goes from the controlling part and it just gets downright violent to the point where it begins to get bloody? What happens then?
One of the things when a person wants to be in control, and there are people who are they call them sadists, they're sadistic. And some people only feel that something has been accomplished when you see blood. There are actually people who are turned on by that. The severity of a beating makes it more interesting, makes it more exciting to a man and to women. So the thing is that what we have to realize is that there are people with sick minds. It's not always something that happened in the home. I can't explain to you where it happened. You're born with that or whatever, but there are some people who love violence and it brings them sexual delight. There are people who, if they can't slap you a couple times, they can't enjoy the sex act. But that stuff comes from childhood. It comes from a whole bunch of stuff. Because what we have to, one thing that we have to understand is that people say there's an underground of this. It's not so much an underground. It's right in our homes. It's all over the place. People are doing sick things. The reality is that who decides is sick? There are women in the Caribbean who says if he doesn't beat me, he doesn't love me. Still today, women are saying that. So the thing is that your upbringing, whatever you were told, whatever you were shown, is the right way. And this love thing, a lot of it has nothing to do with love. It has to do with control. Boys are raised and they feel weak. They feel they have no autonomy. They have no strength. And they're told directly or indirectly by their fathers, their uncles, their grandfathers, watching how they treat women. And they make a decision subconsciously. Well, that's what I'm going to do. So they start doing the same thing. And the desire and the hope is to become powerful. Because one of the things that a lot of people don't want to talk about, even men who love women deeply and are fascinated by women, are also resentful of strong women. there are a lot of men who will rape a woman just because of that, because he feels if I could just take that power from her. That's part of it, is that there are men who resent women who are smart, who are intelligent, who love them and may need them, but they feel that woman has too much control. And let me tell you the other thing. When a man really loves a woman deeply, he can become so angry with her. He can become so resentful of her because he feels that she's weakening him. All those are
what? He feels that she's what?
Huh?
He feels that she's what?
He feels that what he feels for her actually weakens him.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't make
You
him.
ever love that deep, sir?
There's a song that said there's a thin line between love
and hate.
Sam, what am I asking? Sam, what do you
And Chris Rock said, Chris Rock said, you have never been in love.
Sam,
unless
answer the
you felt
question.
like killing someone.
Hold on. Finish that statement again.
Yeah.
You have never been in love unless you felt like killing someone. So, you want to know
something very interesting
with that? You want to know where I fall in line with that?
Yeah, where you fall in line with that kind of passion.
I don't fall in line with those things at all. I don't fall in line with those things at all.
So you've never felt that kind of passion for somebody where you just want.
Yes, but he's able to bring it back. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, you know, you got to realize too that it has to be a mutual thing. So I believe in, you know, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back to you, it's yours. If it don't, it wasn't yours in the first place.
That's a healthy mind, Sam.
No, I don't agree with that. You
know,
love something, set it free. If it come back, set it free again.
Set it free again. Okay. All right. Setting it free.
Carry it further in the bush and let
twice
it go.
Tonight, baby. We've agreed twice tonight.
What?
Come back in, kick your ass out and close the door.
Carry it further and further back in the bush before you set it free the second time. This way, don't find your way back home. No, sir.
I am not putting a gun to anybody's head and force anybody to do anything they don't want to do.
Right.
Under no circumstances, I have no mandate. I don't have no what they call it, a dossier. I have no protocols of whatever they call it. Is a free vibes.
Well, bro, I have never had a mandate in my life.
I saw something on the news. I saw something on the news, very, very interesting. And it happened in Kabul, Afghanistan. There were women out protesting because the female children under Sharia law, they can't go to school after the 6th grade, must dress, fedaheen and all of this. And these women were protesting this, that they can't be part of the government. And, these guys, they have to grow their beard a certain length, all this mess. The woman was taping with her iPhone the protest as well as the soldiers. And a man walked up and snatched her phone out of her hand. And she went under that dress, pulled a gun out, and bam, bam, bam. They did not know what to do. They did it. All these big, tough Afghan fighters standing there looking like they're going to piss them pants with a rifle in their hand. She took the phone out of the dead man's hand and went about her business. Now,
that is what I mean.
That's about control. And the woman took control back. One time.
That is
Now,
why
she
I'm
made a
saying.
mistake.
That is why I'm saying, when you see something happening, you have to be very careful when you're getting involved. That is my thing.
But Judith, you mentioned something. You mentioned something a minute ago in terms of individuals who are sick. Society just tend to lend help to the victims, which they should.
Right, right.
The abusers most times may end up in jail, but if they're not in jail, let me just ask you in terms of Georgia, are there any kind of services in Georgia to help abusers deal with conflict?
I'm not gonna say no or yes because I haven't checked into it. I don't know. I would like to say yes, but I don't know for a fact. I'm sure there is, but I don't know that for a fact. But I will say this: whether it's in Georgia or New York or Florida, it's very limited for men. One is men don't want to admit.
No, we're just dealing with men. We're dealing with the woman side of it too. Abusers. Let's just put that adjective there.
Abusive women?
Yeah, abusers. Period.
Abusers.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I'm not, and I was aware of it some time ago when we did another program. There was something that I researched, but I don't know. I don't have any facts to tell you. I can check it and let you know next time. But I think what happens a lot of time, the abusers, like you said, they don't get they get jailed, which doesn't teach them anything, but they don't get the help, the psychological help that they need, because that's what it is. They need to, whether it's a man or a woman, they need to have the issue addressed of what they're doing for them to understand that, because if all you do is you go to jail for 6 months or whatever, every time you do something, some people are like, it's worth it. It's not a problem. And they're not really thinking that way, because most abusers don't think. They just react. And usually they're reacting to something in their head, something from the past, something that was done to them or something they saw done to somebody else. And so they're going to repeat the action with this person. So abusers don't usually get that much help. In my experience, working in the prison system and everything, it was not something that, and I'm talking about particularly about males, because part of what he said, well, that's a man, he's angry, he has a temper. No, he's got problems. So, but I'll check that and I'm sure there are. But I don't think there's a lot dealing with men being abused, or they might write about men being abusers in terms of what's wrong and then they need, but necessarily have treatment. I don't think so. The prison system has changed because there was a time when they had treatment for a lot of things, and they had trades. They don't do none of that because the prison system has become such a big business. It's on the stock market, it's privatized, and so it has nothing to do with fixing anybody, because the more people go to jail is the more money they make. So
let's go on the victim side. Are you aware of any agencies that are out there to assist victims?
Yes, there are, and I cannot tell you one name right now, but I'm sure there are.
Okay, all of us here from the Caribbean, none of us live there. We left for quite some time. But based on experience, I wouldn't even say experience or your own knowledge, what you have heard, what you've read, how do the authorities handle domestic situations, domestic abuse in Jamaica, and some from what you might know in Tobago?
So Tobago is a small place. Almost everyone is related, or almost everyone, well, not now, before, almost everyone knew each other. So there might have been a chance of some flexibility if the abuser, whether it's a man or a woman, there might have been some flexibility because people knew people. Again, there was this school of thought, not from everyone, but there was this school of thought that if if the man don't do this to you or the man don't do that to you, the man don't love you. So you had a certain sector of women living under that sort of a thing. They expected the abuse. They lived with it. It was part of the narrative of their life. And then you had some who didn't stand for it. It wasn't part of what they wanted to rock with, and they'll be out or they'll travel or you just see they was missing. You know, they may not even announce that they're doing anything. You just notice you come home from work and your house empty. Or, you know, the lady's missing, and then by the time you catch up with her, it's probably 6-7 months down the road. She going to Trinidad by some family and she just living down there for a little while because Mr. Man need to cool out. And by the time everybody cool out, then she say, hey, Women Breads, I ain't really rolling back with you on this program, you know. And, you know, they kind of split bill. And then you have the ones where the spouse can't take, they call it a banker.
But let me talk about the authorities, though. I want to hear how the authorities deal with the situation, though.
I want to make this point because I think it's very important.
Once you caught up, they would arrest. I mean, if it was, you know, something where you were going to be arrested, they'll arrest you. But
okay, so you're saying it's something that the police take very seriously in Tobago. Domestic violence, handling that.
Boy, let me let people who from Tobago answer that because they. I may not understand the full dynamic of it right now, but I do know of situations where, you know, if they knew the person, there was a little flexibility for that, or depending on the amount of times it happened. You know, if the person said, look, brethren, you kind of going beyond what we could do for you, so then they may just bring the axe down because this person ain't really learning the lesson. You understand? So you may have a situation like that where they like really just bring the axe down and it's a wrap. You know, they're shipping you down to Trinidad or they're shipping you. You'll be chilling out in here for a little while because you can't get your act together. So there was, again, a little bit of flexibility for certain situations. But
from my experiences, which is we going way back to the 70s now, growing up in Trinidad, if a woman made a complaint, the first question was asked is, what did you do? She's immediately at fault. What did you do to anger the man to bring him to that state? So obviously the woman, even though she was the victim, she had to be the instigator in the first place to bring him to that state. So that question would always come up. What did you do to anger him into that situation? And she now had to justify everything to show herself as a straight up victim in order to get assistance from local police. And in terms of a man, that was totally taboo. You go to the police station and say your wife beat you, they're going to laugh in your face and tell you, take your backside back home. That was frowned upon. Straightforward, frowned upon. A man could never make a complaint saying that my wife beat me. No, you'll be the laughing stock of the village. Even though some people already know you get your licks, but you cannot go and make it public and say, well, I am an abused male. It's not going to happen. So Mark, jump in on that in terms of what your knowledge of Guyana and how the local authorities handle that situation today.
Today, they do exactly what they did in the 70s and in the 60s. Nothing.
What?
Nothing. If a man lick a woman, he would have to lick her. She'd have to be half dead. And then he would get counseling in the madhouse in Berbice. They would just lock him up. If a woman lick a man, I mean, lick him good. Take one cutlass and go. They have a program for she too. In the madhouse in Berbice. They both go in the same place. So the tendency is to keep your mouth shut. Yes. Yes. And that's the shame. And the point I wanted to make before I have to go is I heard one of the people listening say that there are programs out here for anger management as well as abused women. For abused women, the standard is you must enter, even if you have kids, you must enter a shelter under the state's purview. And for a man to get into an anger management class, it has to be adjudicated. A judge has to. So all of it is criminalized. Instead of just getting the help, saying, you know what, I think I need help with this. There is none. There is none. You can call the suicide hotline or whatever you want to call. They'll listen to you, and then they'll send you to the state. It is designed that way. It's for profit. It's for profit. That's the shame.
Yeah,
that's the shame. That's where I worry.
What we're gonna do? Let's take. Go on. Finish your statement.
No, that's where I worry about my daughters. If one of them gets cuffed, I don't. What can they do other than come to me? And my attitude has always been, I'm an old man. I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it.
So as we head down the home stretch, let me ask you all a question, and if you could close out with this, put your own closing remarks on this. But we're not going on what the government services are offering. This is just from your heart, your experience, your knowledge. How can women, and let's deal with the, don't jump on me for this, let's say the weaker sex. How can women who have been affected by domestic abuse begin to put together a plan to move forward with their lives? Karin, start with you.
Pretty big question. How can they, education, educating yourself that you don't have to be dependent on the man for financial assistance or to live your life. I think that's a huge accomplishment. Because once, I think it just opens up your world to make better choices and better choices in partners. I think that's huge, rather than sit thinking that the love and caring for him and attending to his every need and is going to pull you through. No, educate yourself. Get yourself certifications, whatever you need to push yourself through school. Get the assistance you need. There's a lot of assistance educationally. In Jamaica, it's quite a few limitations, but in this country, you can say that if you really want to get educated, you can. You have so much access. Educate yourself and free yourself from these really restrictive relationships that way.
Mark?
I think Black women need to talk to Black women. Period. End of sentence. Drop the mic. It's integral. Okay? We can't, hear all this nonsense, marching in the streets. We need to speak to each other. And as a collective, have conversation with the men in their lives. You're not doing right. It needs to be a us conversation. It can't be, we can't you know, take a European model and build it on the continent of Africa. And I sincerely believe that. I sincerely tell my daughters, you reach out to the people who care about you, not the some agency or something. Reach out to the people who care about you, and you will get help. That's simple.
Dr. Judith.
I agree with what Karin said, and I agree with some of what Mark just said. And I agree, black women need to talk to each other. But black women need to talk to each other honestly. Black women have to decide who their heroes are. We pick on the wrong people to emulate. I will say it unless something radical happens. I'll say Oprah Winfrey is not my ideal. She's not a marker for me. I don't think she's living as a real black woman anyway. So I've always had serious issues with her, just how she presents herself. And I have a problem with her telling me about marriage when she's never tried it. But that's my personal thing. But like I said, black women, we need to come to the point of liking ourselves, liking the way we were made. It is so hard for me as a black woman to watch how we constantly, I don't know if you're paying attention, I call it the whitening of Black America. You watch these black actresses, how they're becoming lighter. I saw, what's her name tonight? What's her name? Taraji Henson. That girl is so light, and I'm like, what the heck? The other one that come in murder, the TV. One of the darkest actresses.
To get away with murder.
Yeah, she's getting lighter. So until we understand that we are okay as we are, we ain't going nowhere. And it always come back to the same thing for me. The very Bible says, listen, if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. And for lack of knowledge, your people perish. We need to find out who we are and join. Guys, it's something I'm so passionate about because I like who I am. With all my flaws and issues, I like who I am. And I don't need to look European.
We like you too. We like you too.
Yeah. Closing up.
I don't need to look European to be acceptable. I don't need to be lighter to be valuable. And until we get to that place, and I'm telling you, when I look at women losing their hair where they're bald because of those things they put in their hair. I saw a woman today, those eyelashes that you all talked about the other day, and she actually had a hat on her eyes. I want to say, you're a damn idiot. What does that do for you? So the thing is, until we look at, I have a little student, he's supposed to be mentally whatever. He looked in the mirror at work today, and I said, yes, he's white. But anyone in them I take in the bathroom, I said, that's you, that's Nathan. People need to identify themselves and decide this is not an accident. I am wonderfully and fearfully made, and I have no apologies for it. And that's when women unify, not against men, but unify for their own growth. That's one of the problems, is that we believe that we have to unify against men. That's not true. We have to come in agreement about our self-value. That's what we have to do. Men have to do the same thing. But women tend to lead. We tend to lead in those kind of things. So the more we accept ourselves and make ourselves, do not become the enemy of men. That's why I don't call men dogs. Because I say to women, if they're dogs, why are you chasing them? It's fleas you're looking for? So we have to be careful as women. We have to be careful as women what we do with each other. We got to learn to truly love each other, encourage each other, but not against men. And this is the problem that I find with a lot of us black women, is that we're doing it ourselves to prove to him. And say, no. You, Karin said it earlier, your programs out here, there's education, whatever. Get yourself strong. Build yourself up. Not to be a problem to not to be against men, but to be pro women in a healthy way. And the more we get strong, our relationship with men will be better. Because we do lead in certain things.
Thank you, Dr. Judith. Mr. Archer, if you remember the question, or do I need to rephrase it?
No, I remember the question.
Take us home with that.
Yeah. There's a saying that says prevention is better than cure. And we have been trying to find a cure for a very long time. And, you see it in the chat and how the conversation went tonight. Both men and women, what I've been learning, and it's not like I have a secret book that I'm reading or nothing. It's just you learn from experience. And one of the things that I'm learning is that especially our younger adults, because we're kind of over the hill now. We're looking at the Egyptian tree the other way right now. But our younger adults, we have to encourage them to really put a little more thought into the people that you're going to connect with, or people that you're going to fall in love with, or people that you're going to be in relationships with, or that you're going to marry. Put a little more thought into it. Both sides. So it's not just, ladies need to put a little more thought into it. The guys have to put a little more thought into it too. And I think that would also be another way to alleviate where things are going. Because some of us, we are here because our parents was feeling a feeling, There was an attraction, people smile, they giggle, they do a thing, and a baby reach, And they may not have been really made to, they were good to make the child, but, when you're talking about living together on the same roof, there's a chance that they may not have been that type of, that they weren't probably built for each other under that circumstance. So now you have all these other extra things that come into play, and this one stressed, and this one, and it just went into directions that are not wholesome. So let's just encourage our young adults that are especially in child rearing ages, put a little thought into who you're going to connect with, who you're going to make children with. That sort of thing. And I think that's in addition to all the other points. All the points I thought tonight were pretty on, from what Karin said to what Mark contributed, to what Dr. Judith contributed. And I'm just contributing this part to all these other pieces. And that's my piece to throw in there.
Well, for me, what she said, what he said, and what he said. Each and every one of you took a little piece of what I had for my closing statement. So I'm not going to sit here and reiterate that and sound like an echo chamber to repeat the same thing. I'm going to try to make this short and sweet. I can only speak for Florida. I live here. I know the rules. I know some of the laws. Unfortunately, we live in a state where you can get what you call a C&C permit. Conceal and carry. So I say to you women, learn to shoot.
What?
If you meet that man and he understands that every Saturday morning you go to the range, trust me when I tell you, he will look at you differently.
Mm-hmm.
If your ritual every Saturday morning is to go to the shooting range and practice, he will look at you differently. Get yourself a conceal and carry permit. Learn to shoot. and you in a dark alley and any man tries to put his hands on you, I will echo Malcolm X, send him to the cemetery. I have very little respect, none whatsoever, I should say, for a rapist who think it's okay to violate a woman and beat her to a bloody pulp so you could have sex with her. No, I don't agree with that, because I'm telling you, God forbid, it's my daughter or someone close to me and I know who you are, pray. If you're not a praying man, pray that the cops get to you before I do. I won't make this long. Women, learn to shoot. Learn to shoot. And you will garner a whole different level of respect in this society, in this state.
And may the church say amen.
And he put his hands on you, send them to the cemetery. Peace and blessings.
Bye.
Bless.
Hi, I'm Dr. Judith Barnes. I'm an author, a playwright, poet. I'm also a broadcaster by training, and I recently found out about 2 years ago that I can paint paintings, which means I paint sceneries, I paint landscape, I paint animals. I have just discovered, and so that I can do this. And so along with all the other gifts and talents that I've been blessed with, I have paintings, and they are on view and for sale on Etsy and also on Facebook. And if you desire to order any painting or order one of my books, because I'm also an author, please give me a call at 470-564-8267. That's Dr. Judith, and the number again, whether you want to just talk to me or order one of my paintings or one of my books, please feel free to call 470-564-8267. Thank you.
Hello there and welcome. My name is Curtis Henry. Over the past few weeks, as we were putting the final pieces together to get the show on the road, some people asked, why do you need to showcase Caribbean people? Why Caribbean Chat? And I say, why not? Because we as Caribbean people have worked too hard, come too far, and suffered too long for us to continue taking a backseat. It's time for us to rise up, speak out, and show the world the value and the richness of our culture. So I'm providing a platform to showcase the history and culture of Caribbean people in entertainment, the arts, politics, sports, and economics. We will explore the many profound contributions they have made to society. So we invite you to stay with us as we launch what is to become one of the greatest voices of Caribbean people, for Caribbean people, by Caribbean people. On this platform, Caribbean people of excellence get to tell their story. Our aim is to ensure that your contributions are acknowledged and celebrated. Welcome to Caribbean Chat. So make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We are Caribbean Chat.